The emergency room went silent when the little boy started unbuckling his prosthetic leg. 7-year-old Tommy Chen sat on the waiting room chair, his small fingers working the straps with practiced efficiency while his mother reached for him in horror. Across from them, the man who'd stumbled through the doors 10 minutes earlier, dirty, disheveled, bleeding from a gash on his forehead, stared in confusion. "Tommy, no," Sarah Chun whispered, her hand gentle on her son's shoulder. "Baby, you need that." But Tommy's face held the kind of determination that made him look older than his years. His Superman t-shirt was too big, hanging off his thin frame, and his sneaker, just one, on his right foot, was worn through at the toe. He kept working the buckles. "He needs it more, Mom," Tommy said. "His leg is hurt real bad." The man's left leg was twisted at an angle that made several people look away. He'd collapsed near the entrance, conscious but clearly in shock, and the triage nurse had assured everyone an ambulance was coming. But the rural Idaho hospital was understaffed on Sunday mornings, and the nearest ambulance was 20 minutes out. "Son, I don't think," the man started, but Tommy had already freed his prosthetic. "Let's go back to how we got here, to 3 hours earlier, when Tommy's day started with a very different kind of worry." The Chen family's pickup truck rattled along Highway 93 with a sound Sarah had learned to interpret. Today it meant the transmission was going, joining the list of things they couldn't afford to fix. Tommy sat in the back seat, his prosthetic leg stretched out, reading a library book about astronauts for the 3rd time, because returning it meant no new books until they could afford the late fees. "You okay back there, astronaut?" Sarah called, catching his eye in the rearview mirror. Tommy nodded, smiling in the way that broke and mended her heart simultaneously. He'd lost his left leg to bone cancer 2 years ago, and the prosthetic he wore now was his first, a basic model that the hospital charity program had provided. He'd already outgrown it by an inch, but the next size up cost $3,000 their insurance wouldn't cover. Sarah was driving to Boise for a job interview, her 3rd this month. Since Tommy's father had left during the cancer treatment, saying he couldn't handle it, she'd been working 2 part-time jobs while Tommy's medical bills piled up like snow in January. This interview was for a full-time position with benefits. Real benefits. The kind that might cover a prosthetic that actually fit. Tommy never complained. Not about the leg that pinched his stump until it bled. Not about being the only kid at school who couldn't play soccer. Not about the other children who stared or the ones who were crueler, calling him Robot Boy and Hopalong. "Mom, look," Tommy pointed out the window. A man was stumbling along the shoulder of the highway, waving his arms. Even from a distance, Sarah could see something was wrong. His gait was lurching, uneven. As they got closer, she saw the blood. She pulled over immediately, her interview forgotten. The man was probably in his 50s, wearing clothes that had once been nice, but were now filthy and torn. His left leg dragged behind him, and his face was gray with pain. Blood ran from a cut on his forehead into his beard. "Please," he gasped as Sarah jumped out. "My car went off the road about a mile back. I think my leg is broken. Phone's dead. I've been walking for." He swayed, and Sarah caught him before he fell. "Tommy, stay in the truck," she commanded, but her son was already unbuckling, hopping out with the ease of practice. "We need to get him to the hospital," Tommy said, his voice steady despite his wide eyes. Sarah looked at the man, easily 200 pounds of dead weight, and her 120-pound frame. Then she looked at her son, who couldn't run, couldn't carry anything while balancing. The interview in Boise was in 90 minutes. If she missed it, that was it. No callback. No. Full-time position. No benefits. She made the choice in 3 seconds. "Help me get him in the truck," she told Tommy. "We're going to county hospital." Together, they managed to half-carry, half-drag the man to the pickup. He cried out when his leg hit the bumper, a sound that made Tommy flinch. They got him into the back seat with his injured leg stretched out, and Sarah drove like she was racing against death itself. County Hospital appeared after 15 minutes that felt like 50. Sarah pulled up to the emergency entrance, and she and Tommy helped the man out. He could barely stand, even with both of them supporting him. Inside, the waiting room was chaos. A construction accident had brought in 4 workers, and every staff member was occupied. The triage nurse took one look at the man and said an ambulance with proper equipment was on its way, but it would take time. That's when Tommy saw it. The man's left leg, twisted and useless. His own phantom pains flared. The ghost of a limb he no longer had seemed to ache in sympathy. He sat down and started unbuckling his prosthetic. "Tommy, baby, no," Sarah pleaded. But Tommy had that look. The one he'd had when he told the doctors he was brave enough for surgery, when he'd taken his first agonizing steps on the prosthetic, when he'd gotten back up every time the other kids knocked him down. "It's like a splint, right?" Tommy looked up at his mother with absolute certainty. "In my book about astronauts, they made tools from other tools when stuff broke in space. We can use my leg to keep his leg still so it doesn't hurt more." The triage nurse, overhearing, came over. Her name tag read Linda, and her face was lined with exhaustion. She knelt by Tommy, looking him in the eye. "Honey, that's very sweet, but your prosthetic is custom fitted to you. It won't work on him." "Not to walk," Tommy explained patiently, as if talking to someone who didn't understand astronaut engineering. "But the hard parts, the metal and stuff, we can use it like a splint, to keep his leg straight, so the broken parts don't move around." Linda paused, considering. She looked at the man, whose face was growing more pale by the minute, then at the little boy holding out his prosthetic leg like it was the most natural thing in the world. That might actually help stabilize it," she admitted. She looked at Sarah. "Ma'am, I can't ask you to." "You're not asking," Sarah said quietly, tears streaming down her face. "He's offering." Tommy had already freed the prosthetic completely. It was a basic model, metal bars and joints covered in foam and plastic, with straps and buckles. Linda took it carefully, examining it with professional assessment. "The frame could work," she said slowly. "If we pad it properly, secure it alongside his leg." She looked at Tommy. "You're sure about this, sweetheart? You'll have to wait without it." Tommy nodded. "I can wait. I'm tough." The man, still conscious despite his pain, reached out and took Tommy's small hand in his larger, trembling one. "Son, what's your name?" "Tommy Chen. I'm 7.5. "Tommy Chen," the man repeated, his voice cracking. "I need you to know that what you're doing. This is the kindest thing anyone's ever done for me. I won't forget this. I promise you I won't forget." "It's okay," Tommy said simply. "When I lost my leg, lots of people helped me. Now I get to help someone." Linda worked quickly, calling over another nurse. Together, they used the prosthetic's rigid frame as a makeshift splint, padding it with gauze and securing it alongside the man's broken leg with medical tape. It wasn't perfect, but it immobilized the injury, keeping the bone fragments from grinding together. The man's breathing eased almost immediately. The relief on his face was profound. "Better?" Tommy asked, hopping closer on his one leg, balancing with a hand on the wall. "So much better. Thank you." The man's eyes were red. "What's your mother's name? I need to know who raised such a remarkable boy." "Sarah Chun," Sarah said, her voice barely a whisper. "And he raised himself to be remarkable. I just try to keep up." The ambulance arrived 5 minutes later. As paramedics loaded the man onto a stretcher, he kept his eyes on Tommy, who waved from Sarah's arms. She'd picked him up to save him the effort of hopping. "Mrs. Chun," the man called out as they wheeled him toward the doors. "The prosthetic, I'll get it back to you, I swear." "Where can I find you?" Sarah rattled off their address in Cascade. "A blink and you miss it, town 40 miles north." The man repeated it like a prayer as the ambulance doors closed. In the sudden quiet of the waiting room, Sarah realized the time, 10:47 a.m. Her interview had been at 10:30. She'd missed it. The job, the benefits, the prosthetic that fit, the chance to stop drowning, all of it was gone. She should have felt devastated. Instead, looking at her son's peaceful face, she felt something else, pride so fierce it burned. "We'll figure it out," she whispered into Tommy's hair. "I know, Mom." Tommy hugged her tighter. "We always do." They stayed another hour while Linda checked Tommy's stump for pressure sores and re-wrapped it with fresh bandages. She refused payment, pressing a card into Sarah's hand instead. "There's a prosthetic clinic in Boise," Linda said. "They do sliding scale work. I wrote my recommendation on the back." The drive home was quiet. Tommy fell asleep against the window, exhausted from the adrenaline crash. Sarah's mind raced with calculations. Bills due, shifts to pick up, how long Tommy could manage with crutches before the next paycheck. They never expected to hear from the man again. People said thank you and meant it in the moment, but gratitude faded. Life moved on. Sarah understood that. But 3 days later, a FedEx truck pulled up to their small rental house. The driver carried a large box, followed by a certified letter. Inside was Tommy's prosthetic, professionally cleaned and returned, along with something else. A brand new prosthetic leg, top of the line, custom fitted to Tommy's measurements. The letter explained that the man had contacted the hospital, gotten Tommy's sizing information, and expedited the order. But it was the second page that made Sarah's knees give out. Sarah read the letter 3 times before she believed it. Dear Tommy and Mrs. Chen, my name is Dr. James Morrison. You saved my life on Sunday, not just from a broken leg, but from something much worse. I need to tell you the whole story. I'm the former chief of orthopedic surgery at Portland Medical Center. 2 years ago, I made a mistake during a routine procedure. My patient, a 12-year-old boy, developed complications. He survived, but lost mobility in his arm. It was my fault. I'd been working 18-hour days, and I missed something crucial in the pre-op scan. I couldn't forgive myself. I resigned, left my practice, gave up my medical license. I spent 2 years driving around the country, trying to outrun the guilt. Last week, I decided I couldn't anymore. I drove my car off that highway intentionally, Tommy. I wanted it to end. But I survived the crash. And then I met you. When you gave me your prosthetic leg, when you sacrificed your own mobility to ease a stranger's pain, you showed me something I'd forgotten. Medicine isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up, helping, trying. You did more doctoring in that waiting room than I'd done in 2 years of running away. I'm reinstating my medical license. I'm specializing in prosthetics and rehabilitation. I'm going to spend the rest of my career helping kids like you. Kids who deserve every chance to run and play and be astronauts if they want. The prosthetic I sent is just the beginning. I've established a fund in your name at County Hospital, the Tommy Chen Prosthetic Fund. It will provide devices for kids whose families can't afford them. Your generosity is going to help dozens of children. I'm also enclosing a check. Before I gave up medicine, I had saved a considerable amount. I want you to have it. Please don't refuse this. You gave me my life back. Let me give you some security in return. I'll be visiting Cascade next month. I'd like to meet you both properly, if you'll allow it. I need to thank you in person. And Tommy, I have something special to show you. A prototype leg I'm developing specifically for active kids. I could use a consultant. Interested? With more gratitude than words can express, Dr. James Morrison. The check fell from Sarah's shaking hands. Tommy picked it up, his eyes going wide. Mom, is that real? All those zeros. $50,000. Enough to pay off Tommy's medical debt. Enough for a reliable car. Enough to breathe. Sarah collapsed onto their threadbare couch, sobbing so hard she couldn't speak. Tommy hopped over and climbed into her lap, holding her the way she'd held him through all those terrifying nights in the hospital. It's okay, Mom, he whispered. See? We figured it out. A month later, Dr. Morrison arrived in Cascade driving a modest sedan, looking nothing like the broken man they'd found on the highway. He'd gained weight. His eyes were clear. He moved with purpose. The meeting happened at their house. Morrison insisted on seeing where Tommy lived, said it helped him understand the real needs of his patients. He spent 3 hours on the floor with Tommy, examining his new prosthetic, making adjustments, taking notes. You're healing well, Morrison said, his doctor's hands gentle on Tommy's stump. The scarring is minimal. Good surgical team. Dr. Patel, Sarah said. She was amazing. I'd like to contact her, if that's okay. Compare notes on your case. Morrison smiled at Tommy. You're going to be my teacher, you know? Every prosthetic I design from now on, I'm going to think. Would this work for Tommy? Would this let him be an astronaut? I might not be an astronaut, Tommy admitted. I might be a doctor instead. Like you. Morrison's eyes glistened. The world would be lucky to have you. Before he left, Morrison gave them one more gift, a framed photograph of himself at the Rehabilitation Center in Portland, surrounded by 5 children, all wearing prosthetics, all grinning at the camera. On the back, he'd written, "The Tommy Chen Effect, paying kindness forward." Those kids, Morrison explained, they're the first recipients from your fund. That little girl in the pink leg, she's been waiting 2 years for a prosthetic. Now she's walking, because you gave me your leg on the side of a highway. After Morrison left, Sarah tucked Tommy into bed and sat on the edge of his mattress, the way she had every night through cancer and surgery and recovery. Did we do good, Mom? Tommy asked sleepily. You did extraordinary, baby. You saved a life. Multiple lives, really. He saved us too, though, Tommy pointed out with 7-year-old logic. So I guess we saved each other. Sarah kissed his forehead. I guess we did. 6 months later, Sarah started her new job, full-time, with benefits, at the prosthetic clinic Dr. Morrison had helped establish in Cascade. She coordinated patient care and funding applications, helping families navigate the same impossible systems she'd once fought alone. Tommy became Morrison's youngest consultant, testing prototypes and providing feedback that actual kids would give, not what adults imagined kids would say. His suggestions improved 3 different prosthetic designs. The Tommy Chen Prosthetic Fund grew beyond anyone's expectations. Morrison donated. Local businesses donated. A news article about Tommy's story went viral, and donations poured in from across the country. Within a year, they'd helped 47 children. On the anniversary of their highway meeting, Morrison visited Cascade for a celebration at County Hospital. The waiting room, the same room where Tommy had unbuckled his prosthetic, was filled with children and parents whose lives had been changed by one boy's instinct to help. Morrison pulled Tommy aside, kneeling so they were eye to eye. I want you to know something, Morrison said. That day on the highway, I was at the end. I'd given up on everything, my career, my purpose, my life. And then a 7-year-old boy showed me what real courage looks like. What real medicine is. You saved me, Tommy. In every way a person can be saved. Tommy hugged him fiercely. You saved me too. Now I can run. And he could. The prototype leg Morrison had designed specifically for him was a marvel. Responsive, comfortable, built for an active kid who wanted to explore the world. Tommy wore it now, along with his Superman shirt and a smile that lit up every room he entered. Sarah watched from across the room, surrounded by families she'd helped, working a job she loved, free from the crushing debt that had nearly destroyed them. One choice on a highway had changed everything. That night, as she tucked Tommy in, he still let her, even though he insisted he was getting too old. She found him reading a new library book. This one was about doctors. Still thinking about being a doctor? She asked. Yeah, Tommy said. But the kind who remembers what it's like to be scared. The kind who helps people the way Dr. Morrison helps people. The way you help people. You'll be that kind, Sarah promised. You already are. She turned off his light and paused in the doorway, silhouetted against the hallway. Behind her, on the wall, hung Morrison's photograph of the children, the Tommy Chen effect. It turned out kindness wasn't just an action. It was a ripple, spreading outward in ways you couldn't predict or control. One small boy's instinct to help a stranger had saved a doctor, funded a program, helped dozens of children, and reminded everyone who heard the story what humans were capable of when they chose compassion over indifference. Tommy had given away his prosthetic leg for a few hours. In return, he'd received a future, not just the physical leg that let him run, but a purpose. A reminder that being broken didn't make you useless. It made you someone who understood pain, and therefore someone uniquely qualified to heal it. Sarah closed his door softly and walked to her own room, with a framed letter from Morrison hung beside Tommy's bed. She read it sometimes when the weight of single motherhood felt too heavy. Tonight, it didn't feel heavy at all. It felt like grace. Outside, the Idaho night was vast and star-filled. Somewhere in Portland, Morrison was probably working late in his new clinic, designing a prosthetic for some other child who needed a miracle. Somewhere across the country, 47 children were walking, running, playing, living full lives because one boy had decided that a stranger's pain mattered more than his own comfort. And in a small house in Cascade, a 7-year-old boy who'd lost his leg but never lost his heart was dreaming of the day he'd become a doctor. The kind who remembered that medicine wasn't about perfection. It was about showing up, helping, trying. Just like a kid in a Superman shirt, unbuckling his prosthetic in a crowded emergency room, offering the only thing he had to ease a stranger's suffering. That, Sarah thought as she drifted to sleep, was the moment everything changed. The moment kindness won.